Welcome to Kaizen Time, part of the Blood, Sweat, and Business podcast, where we provide constant improvement to businesses through timely, actionable financial solutions. Do you want answers to your financial questions? Email us at bsp@kaizencpas.com. I'm your host, Mark Valesky. Now let's get started. Welcome to another episode of Kaizen Time. I'm joined by Henry Jorn, a manager here at the firm. Henry, how you doing?
Doing pretty good. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well as well. But what I really want to know is, how does 2025 look? Like the rest of, this year, because there's been a lot that's happened and we're only halfway through.
So I know, towards the end of 24, with, who came into power and everything in the White House, there was a very, positive outlook on how the economy was going to go.
Yeah. Was it because one of the big talking points was the economy? And that's nothing new. Every president who runs is going to talk about the economy, but a focus on the economy.
Well, and like with a Republican coming in, you always assume that's going to be a boost to the economy. And, a lot of people said the last time Trump was in office, it did drive the economy a little bit. But then we got to Q1, and what happened?
Didn't things dip a little bit?
Yeah, we took a little bit of a dip.
On the chin.
Some of it, honestly, there was legislation that was unexpected. Of course, I'm talking a lot about the tariffs, right? And I don't know if that really did as much substantively as we thought going in, but what it did do is it caused a lot of deterrent in purchasing. Consumers were afraid, how is this going to impact things? Or you even had sometimes the opposite, where like, oh, the tariffs are coming, let's stockpile a bunch of stuff before the prices go way up.
And we're not talking like COVID where everyone's buying toilet paper, but it's kind of
it could be commodities if you wanted to know.
So, for example, I have some friends in the automotive space, and when the tariff thing was announced, like people were buying cars fast because they didn't know, what was going to happen. And I know one thing that we talk about on this podcast, and many of the episodes is about being consistent, sustainable. Businesses and the economy and buyers and even clients love consistency and be able to get what they want, on a regular interval. And when that becomes disrupted, all of a sudden there's an issue.
So in saying all of that, the real strategy behind the tariffs was actually to reverse negotiate tariffs that had been
already in existence,
put in place against the United States exports. And I think that worked out well. There were some big countries that are still being settled, China being one of them.
Probably the biggest one. Yep.
And, but it actually was less about the actual, taxation, which is essentially what a tariff is, of imports, and more about like reverse negotiating those things. Besides the point though, we get through the first quarter, and while some industries did fine, a lot of businesses in the consumer market, retail space, because of the fear that people had in choosing to save rather than to spend or invest, kind of created a conservative marketplace, and businesses in that retail space suffered a little bit. We spend a lot of time with automotive shops. I don't think in that Q1 any of my clients that are automotives had success. All of them kind of had a hard time through Q1, worse off than it normally is, which Q1 is generally not a good quarter for them.
Yep.
So now, that was the past, and now we're kind of already through Q2. Q2, things started to pick up. The talks about the tariffs have kind of, lessened a little bit. I think there's still some consumer sentiment out there that, hey, let's save rather than spend. But the outlook is actually that I know we talk a little bit like, hey, let's get back to normal. Mm-hmm. And because we tend to think, what have you done for me lately, mm-hmm. in a way, normal is the last couple of years of economy and business. But the fact of the matter is the last few years might be the anomaly.
By last few years, are we talking the last 5 years, last 10 years?
Primarily, let's talk about 22 through now. Really the first half of 24, coming out of COVID, a lot of things really took off, particularly in 22. 22, we also do tax work. It was one of the toughest years for doing tax returns because so many businesses had success. But now, what the aggregate of the data that we were able to pull and the articles that we read and everything, we're kind of looking at maybe we should go back to 2019, maybe 2015 through 2019, just for inflation. Because we all know, like, that's been a huge factor, over the past few years, and, normalize that. And maybe that's what we should really be comparing to rather than, this few years coming out of a huge, damn near depression, as a result of COVID. It just might be more comparable. And I think, I would advise business owners to adjust their expectations if they've been going all year, waiting for, the, pin to drop and all the sales to flood in. It's likely it's not going to happen.
Okay. So is that, because I love to ask questions of you guys. Is that what you would tell your clients? Like if you had to say, hey, what piece of advice would you give your clients right now for the rest of 2025?
I would prepare for sales not to come in. Not necessarily, of course not zero, but like don't expect like this huge floodgate to open and all of a sudden, you're booming the rest of the year. Now is the time to kind of, maybe you got to go back, take a look at your P&L, see what you can cut or like come up with creative ideas, to either become more efficient or expand the circumference of who you sell to. And when I say that, I mean, do things like if you only market locally, maybe you got to go 3 towns over.
Okay.
I know in some industries, because they're heavily using Google Ads as, their primary source of marketing, there's been some creative ideas to even, put just to add the zip code to your Google ad. You buy like maybe a pop-up shop. You can't do a PO box. Google won't let you use the PO box, but weird things like that to kind of start to manipulate, what you're able to expand when people type in the search bar for what you produce or do
for your service. Yeah.
So that's one option. You could expand the hours of service, right? If you're only Monday through Friday, maybe you open Saturday or Sunday, and you don't necessarily have to say like, we're going to do then 7 days a week.
Yep.
So when I was in logistics, we actually, all of our, we'll call them big and bulky hubs used to be open from Tuesday to Saturday. Why? Because Saturday was the day that people wanted their furniture delivered. They weren't home,
Yep.
The other days of the week. And Saturdays would actually be like the biggest day for deliveries. And I know these are different industries, maybe necessarily, but you could still apply those logics to, whatever industry you're in. Mm-hmm. Maybe you're better off, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Okay. So, kind of our overall thought as we kind of wrap this up for 2025, we're thinking it's going to be just more of a normal year. Pretty, I don't want to say tame, but definitely not going to be.
I would say tame in the sense that it's going to be down from the last few years. But maybe back to, what we experienced in the 2010 through 2020 years up until the pandemic.
Okay. And is there any other, actually, what I really want to know is what industries do you expect to do pretty well? So, for example, we talked about COVID and, a lot of industries did not do well. But if you
logistics did super well.
Yeah, logistics did great. Home fitness, Zoom specifically did great.
Sure.
What are kind of the things, the industries?
E-commerce.
So what do you think is not going to do well, and what do you think is going to do pretty well? Like for example, I imagine like retail is going to continue to keep taking some hits.
So I think one that's already doing well, construction, has been doing well the last couple of years, and I think that's going to continue. I think, that one in particular, because the physical nature of that type of role, a lot of infrastructure, maintenance, rebuilds, and I think it's going to be more maintenance, because I think what we're going to see is, and I don't have a crystal ball, so this is a very big guess. The population expansion over time and the rate that it's been is going to continue to slow down as it has for a while now. So it's going to be more maintenance rather than outright expansion in construction. But a lot of those projects that got put on pause during the pandemic are happening now. Especially like a lot of the government facilities, schools. So I think they're gonna do well up and coming. I don't think I think retail is going to continue to suffer as they have. Particularly when I say retail, I mean more like the brick and mortar retailers is going to continue to suffer as they have the last several years. Right now, logistics is actually on a downward stream. I think even a lot of the big like UPS and those huge organizations are kind of having rough outs right now as the rates have kind of dropped.
I do want to add something about the rates and because we do focus specifically on business owners. There was talk about whether the rates for lending are going to go up and down. And you also mentioned like don't expect some very.
They're going to go down a little bit, but don't expect
that's what I was looking for.
The 2.5%,
those 2%
mortgage. That's out the window.
The days of refinancing for that are gone. All right. As we wrap up, Henry, is there anything else you want to tell our listeners about basically 2025?
Like I said, now is kind of a time, rather than invest in the top line, invest in all the other buckets across your organization and see what you can do to get more out of less. That'd be my overarching recommendation for the back half of the year.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Welcome to Kaizen Time, part of the Blood, Sweat, and Business podcast, where we provide constant improvement to businesses through timely, actionable financial solutions. Do you want answers to your financial questions? Email us at bsp@kaizencpas.com. I'm your host, Mark Valesky. Now let's get started.